Commander Rachel Morrison ended Lieutenant Jessica Park's career on a Thursday morning, and whether she was right to do it depends entirely on which principles you think matter more. Protecting patients or protecting people. Rachel believed she'd done the right thing, reported a nurse whose personal crisis was affecting patient care, followed protocol, put safety first. Jessica believed she'd been destroyed by a supervisor who showed no compassion, who prioritized rules over humanity, who could have helped but chose to punish instead. They were both right. They were both wrong. And there's no satisfying answer to who was more justified. It started 6 months earlier at Naval Hospital Camp Pendleton, when Lieutenant Jessica Park's 8-year-old daughter, Emma, was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Jessica was a pediatric ICU nurse, 15 years of experience, excellent clinical skills, dedicated, compassionate, professional. And suddenly, she was a mother watching her child fight for her life. Emma's treatment was aggressive: chemotherapy, radiation, bone marrow transplants, weeks in the hospital, months of recovery, years of monitoring. Jessica tried to balance it all: work, motherhood, Emma's medical needs, her own emotional survival. She requested flexible scheduling. Commander Rachel Morrison, the chief of nursing, accommodated where possible, gave Jessica the shifts that allowed her to be at Emma's appointments, covered for her when emergencies arose. But there were limits. The pediatric ICU was understaffed. They couldn't function if Jessica was constantly absent or distracted. "I understand what you're going through," Rachel told her during a supervision meeting, "but I need to know you can fulfill your duties when you're here. Patients depend on you. I know. I'm doing my best." Your best is usually excellent, but lately, you've been making mistakes. Small ones, so far, but mistakes that could escalate. Rachel pulled out documentation. You charted a medication as given that wasn't administered. You missed a lab result that required immediate action. You forgot to follow up on a patient's deteriorating vitals. I corrected all of those immediately. No patients were harmed this time. But Jessica, you're not mentally present. I can see it. Your colleagues can see it. And eventually, a patient is going to suffer because of it. Jessica felt defensive. My daughter has cancer. I'm trying to save her life and do my job. I'm sorry if I'm not perfect right now. I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for safe. And right now, I'm not sure you can provide that. Rachel's voice wasn't unkind, but it was firm. I think you should take medical leave. Focus on Emma. Come back when you're ready. I can't afford to take leave. Emma's treatment costs are astronomical, even with insurance. I need my salary. There are programs, family medical leave, hardship assistance, ways to get financial support while you're on leave. That takes time to arrange. Applications, approvals, waiting periods. Jessica's voice was strained. I need to work now. I need the income now. And I need the distraction. Work is the only place where I'm not thinking about whether my daughter is going to die. Rachel understood the impossibility of Jessica's situation, but she also understood her responsibility to patients. I'll give you 2 more weeks, Rachel decided. Continue your current schedule, but if I see more errors, we'll need to revisit this conversation. And Jessica, please consider talking to someone, a therapist, a chaplain, someone who can help you manage what you're carrying. Jessica agreed, tried harder, focused more intently when she was at work, but grief and fear don't respond to effort. They leaked through anyway. A 7-year-old patient in Jessica's care, Corporal Martinez's son Daniel, had a post-operative complication, developed internal bleeding that required immediate intervention. The warning signs were in Daniel's vitals: increasing heart rate, dropping blood pressure, pale skin, classic indicators of hemorrhagic shock. Jessica should have recognized them immediately, should have called for the surgeon, should have initiated emergency protocols. But Emma had just had a setback. New tumors found on her latest scan. Jessica had gotten a call from the oncologist 20 minutes before her shift started. She was at work physically, but mentally, she was with Emma, thinking about treatment options, survival statistics, what she'd tell her daughter. She glanced at Daniel's vitals, noted they were slightly elevated, but attributed it to post-surgical pain. Didn't connect the pattern, didn't recognize the emergency developing. By the time another nurse noticed and called for help, Daniel was in hemorrhagic shock. He needed emergency surgery, blood transfusions, intensive intervention. He survived, but barely, and only because the other nurse had caught what Jessica missed. Rachel conducted an immediate review, found that Jessica had documented assessing Daniel multiple times over 2 hours, but she'd missed obvious signs of deteriorating condition. "Jessica, you almost killed that child." "I know, I'm sorry, I couldn't focus. Emma's cancer spread. They told me this morning. I shouldn't have come to work, but I couldn't afford to call out. Your daughter's condition doesn't excuse endangering another child." "I know that." Jessica's voice broke. "Don't you think I know that? I'm trying to save my own child while taking care of other people's children, and I'm failing at both." Rachel felt sympathy, genuine sympathy, but she also felt responsibility. "Jessica, I have to report this. A patient was seriously harmed because you weren't capable of providing safe care. That requires investigation. Please don't. This will destroy my career. I'll lose my job. I won't be able to pay for Emma's treatment. Please, just give me another chance. I'll do better. I'll focus more." You said that 3 weeks ago, and today a child almost died." Rachel's voice was sad but resolute. "I'm sorry about Emma, truly, but I can't prioritize your financial needs over patient safety. I have to file a report. You're destroying me. I'm protecting patients. I wish there was a way to do both, but there isn't." Rachel filed the report. Jessica was placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. The patient safety review examined Daniel Martinez's case, found that Jessica had documented assessments but missed obvious clinical signs, found that she'd been counseled 3 weeks earlier about performance concerns related to her daughter's illness. They interviewed Jessica. "Lieutenant Park, were you mentally capable of providing safe patient care on the day in question?" "I thought I was wrong." "Were you aware you were distracted?" "I knew I was struggling, but I didn't think I'd miss something critical. I've been a pediatric ICU nurse for 15 years. I thought my training would carry me through." "Did you consider calling out sick that day?" "I couldn't afford to. My daughter's treatment costs exceed my insurance coverage. I need every hour of work I can get." The investigators documented her responses, noted her circumstances, but also noted that financial need doesn't justify unsafe patient care. They interviewed Rachel. "Commander Morrison, did you adequately support Lieutenant Park during her family crisis?" "I provided flexible scheduling when possible, offered resources for counseling and financial assistance, monitored her performance, and addressed concerns when they arose." "Did you consider forcing her to take medical leave earlier?" "I considered it, but she needed the income. I tried to balance her needs with patient safety for as long as I could. When I saw errors, I counseled her. When those errors escalated to patient harm, I reported as required." "Do you believe you handled this appropriately?" Rachel paused. "I believe I followed proper protocols. Whether that's the same as handling it appropriately, I don't know." The medical board convened to determine Jessica's future. The evidence was presented: her documented errors, the Martinez incident, her personal circumstances, Rachel's supervision attempts. Jessica's lawyer argued compassion. "Lieutenant Park is an exemplary nurse, facing an impossible situation. Her daughter is fighting cancer. Treatment costs are bankrupting her family. She's trying to work through a crisis that would break anyone. Yes, she made an error, but it was a single incident during extraordinary circumstances. She deserves support, not punishment." The hospital's attorney argued safety. Patient care cannot be compromised regardless of a nurse's personal circumstances. Lieutenant Park was unable to provide safe care. She endangered a child. Commander Morrison appropriately identified the problem, counseled the employee, and reported when patient harm occurred. This is textbook proper supervision. The board deliberated, came back with a decision that satisfied no one. Lieutenant Park will be placed on mandatory medical leave for 6 months. During this time, she will undergo fitness for duty evaluation and complete remedial clinical training. Her return to duty will be contingent on successful completion of these requirements and medical clearance. Additionally, she will receive a letter of caution in her permanent record. Jessica stood numbly as they read the decision. 6 months without pay. Emma's treatment would continue. The bills would pile up, and her career would be permanently marked. Rachel sat in the hearing room, feeling no victory. She'd protected patients, followed protocol, done everything right, and destroyed a mother who was trying to save her child. Jessica completed her mandatory leave, passed the fitness evaluation, completed the clinical training, returned to work at Camp Pendleton, but she wasn't the same nurse. The joy was gone, the compassion was still there, but guarded, protected. She did her job competently, but without the warmth that had made her exceptional. Emma's cancer was in remission. The treatment had worked. But the financial damage was catastrophic. Jessica and her husband had declared bankruptcy, lost their home, moved into a small apartment, would be paying off medical debt for decades. Jessica blamed Rachel. Every time she saw her supervisor, she felt rage. You could have helped me. You could have found a way, but you chose rules over humanity. Rachel heard the accusation, felt the weight of it, but stood by her decision. I had to protect patients. That's my responsibility. Your responsibility destroyed my family. Jessica, I'm sorry about what you went through, but if I had ignored your errors and a child had died, would you have thanked me for my compassion? Or would you have blamed me for not stopping you? Jessica had no answer to that. The Martinez family filed a formal complaint against the hospital. Not a lawsuit, just a complaint about the near death of their son. The investigation reopened, reviewed Jessica's case again, examined Rachel's supervision. The Inspector General's office found Commander Morrison's actions were consistent with regulations and patient safety protocols. Lieutenant Park's personal circumstances, while sympathetic, did not excuse unsafe patient care. The hospital's response to the incident was appropriate. But they also noted, however, systemic issues contributed to this incident. Inadequate staffing levels forced Lieutenant Park to work when she was clearly unfit. Insufficient financial support programs left her unable to take necessary medical leave. Poor mental health resources meant she had no effective support during a family crisis. While Commander Morrison followed appropriate protocols, the system itself failed both the nurse and the patient. The report recommended policy changes, better staffing ratios, enhanced financial assistance programs, mandatory counseling access for staff facing family crises, more flexible leave policies. It vindicated Rachel's specific actions. While condemning the system she operated within, Rachel read the report and felt hollow. She'd done everything right, and the system said she was correct. But Jessica's family was still ruined. Jessica read the report and felt bitter. The system acknowledged it had failed her, but it didn't give her back her home, her savings, or the year of her daughter's childhood she'd spent drowning in debt and fear. Jessica transferred to a different hospital. Couldn't work under Rachel anymore, couldn't separate her supervisor from the system that had crushed her. She was still an excellent nurse, still competent, still safe, but something essential had broken. The part of her that believed nursing was a calling, not just a job. She did her shifts, went home, didn't socialize with colleagues, didn't mentor new nurses, didn't participate in committees or initiatives. She'd become exactly what the system made her. A competent professional who no longer cared about anything beyond minimum requirements. Emma thrived. Cancer remained in remission. She was a normal 10-year-old now, healthy, happy, unaware of the debt her survival had created. Jessica's marriage survived, barely. The stress of Emma's illness and the financial devastation had fractured something. She and her husband stayed together for Emma, but the partnership they'd once had was gone. And every day, Jessica thought about Rachel. About whether her supervisor could have done something different, about whether compassion and safety were truly incompatible. She never reached a conclusion, just cycled through anger, understanding, resentment, and exhausted acceptance. Rachel remained chief of nursing at Camp Pendleton, continued supervising staff, continued enforcing standards, continued protecting patients. But the Jessica Park case haunted her, not because she thought she'd been wrong, but because being right had felt so destructive. She'd followed every protocol, done everything by the book, and a mother trying to save her dying child had been financially destroyed. Rachel started advocating for the policy changes the IG recommended, pushed for better staffing, enhanced financial support programs, more flexible leave policies. She testified before Navy Medical Command. We cannot ask nurses to choose between their children and their patients. That's an impossible choice that inevitably leads to either patient harm or staff destruction. We need systems that support both. The policies changed slowly. New financial assistance programs were implemented. Live policies became more flexible. Mental health resources expanded. But it was too late for Jessica. The changes came after her family had been ruined. Rachel thought about reaching out, apologizing, explaining. But what would she say? I'm sorry I destroyed your family by doing my job correctly. So she stayed silent, carried the weight of being right in a way that felt wrong. Jessica and Rachel, encountered each other at a Navy nursing conference. Both were presenting on different topics. Both had successful careers continuing in different locations. They hadn't spoken in 4 years. During a coffee break, they stood in line next to each other. Awkward silence. Then Jessica spoke. "How have you been?" "Good. You?" "Surviving." Jessica paused. "Emma's cancer is still in remission. She's 13 now. Thriving." "I'm glad." More silence. Then Rachel said, "I think about that day often, about whether I could have handled it differently." "Could you have?" "I don't know. If I'd ignored your errors and Daniel had died, I'd be responsible for his death. If I'd forced you on leave earlier, you'd have lost income and maybe not been able to afford Emma's treatment. Every option felt wrong." Jessica considered that. "I blamed you for a long time. Thought you were heartless. Thought you could have found a way to help instead of punish. And now I don't know. You were protecting patients. That's your job. That's my job too. If I'd been supervising someone making the errors I was making, I'd have reported them." Jessica's voice was quiet. "But I also know that my family was destroyed by following the rules. That feels unjust, even if it was correct." "It was unjust," Rachel agreed. "The system failed you. I was just the person who enforced that system." "Is there a difference?" "I used to think so. Now I'm not sure." They stood together in uncomfortable understanding. Two professionals who'd both been right and both been wrong, who'd both followed their principles and both caused harm. "I don't forgive you," Jessica said finally, "but I understand you were in an impossible position too. I don't ask for forgiveness. I just regret that there wasn't a better way." "So do I." They parted, continued their separate careers, carried their separate regrets. Daniel Martinez graduated from high school, healthy, thriving. No lasting effects from his near-death experience at age 7. His parents wrote to the hospital, "We're grateful Daniel survived. We understand the nurse caring for him was going through a personal crisis. We hope she's doing well. We also hope the hospital has better systems now to support staff during family emergencies." The letter acknowledged both realities. Jessica's error had nearly killed their son. Jessica's circumstances had been impossible. Emma finished treatment, celebrated 5 years, applied to nursing school. "I want to help people like the nurses who helped me." Jessica didn't discourage her but warned, "Nursing is beautiful and brutal. It will ask you to be perfect when you're breaking. Remember that, when you're supervising someday. Remember that rules and compassion sometimes conflict, and there's no easy answer to which matters more." Rachel retired after 35 years of service. Her legacy included the policy reforms she'd championed, the financial assistance programs, the flexible leave policies, the support systems that helped nurses balance family crises and patient care, policies that came too late for Jessica, but helped hundreds of nurses after her. In her retirement speech, Rachel said, "The hardest part of leadership is making decisions where every option hurts someone, where following the rules destroys lives, where protecting one person means failing another. I don't have answers. I just have decades of decisions I stand by and regret simultaneously."